We're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you to the NEMSIS V3 implementation call. Today is Wednesday, November the 12th, 2025. We're so very excited that you're here to join us for the call today. We do have a full agenda. And as I mentioned before, go ahead and update your name and your affiliation in the participation list. I want to let you know that these calls are recorded and available on our NEMSIS YouTube channel as well as the NEMSIS website. And we encourage you to review the call as needed or to share it with your colleagues who may want to know more about NEMSIS. If you have questions, please go ahead and enter the questions in the Q&A. And if we're able to answer the questions live, we'll do so. If not, we will discuss the question in our post-meeting debrief, and we will provide a response. And now, at this time, I would like to turn some time over to my colleague, Mr. John Britt, who will offer a stakeholder introduction. And John, you have the time.
All right, thank you. Share my screen. So as I do every meeting, I get to do the stakeholder introduction, which is one of my very favorite things to do. We do it to get to know others on the call and put faces to names, build connections, get maybe some new ideas for hobbies, and just learn about each other and to spotlight somebody for 30 to 45 seconds, which is a lot of fun. But unfortunately, for the second meeting in a row, I don't have any stakeholders who have signed up for or have completed my form to be introduced. So I'm asking you, I'm begging you a little bit to please scan this QR code or go to the a link that I'll put in chat and submit a form and a couple pictures so that you can be introduced. Because what I might start doing is doing reruns of people who've already been introduced and just reintroduce people randomly at willy-nilly. But I would rather introduce people who've never been introduced. And while I have your attention, I wanted to talk to you about CP6 in lieu of a dashboard refresh or a review. So there we have noted an uptick in failures due to the CP6 going live, which was not unexpected. But I will be reaching out to states individually to help them troubleshoot what the issue is. Or if you already know that you've got some issues and you'd like some help troubleshooting them, feel free to reach out to me either by email or with a help desk ticket, and we can get ahead and go ahead and get this fixed and continue on. As always, we thank you for your participation and help. And with this, we've had a really low failure rate over the past 2 years, and we want to keep it that way. And with that, I'll send it back to you, Monet.
Okay, thank you so much, John. I really appreciate that. And I'm hoping someone will want to get introduced on the call. We certainly have stakeholders that we don't know yet. Now, yes. Now I'm going to turn some time over to my colleague Bengie Alexandre to provide the maintenance update. And I give you the time, Bengie.
Thanks, Monet. So the maintenance update, it can be found on the NEMSIS website. I'll screen share here so you can see where it's listed on the website. Monet, are you seeing the NEMSIS webpage?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So if you go to technical resources on the NEMSIS website.
I don't see the website yet.
Yeah, Bengie, we're seeing like a blue ribbon.
Okay. Is it here?
There we go.
Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you. So if you look under technical resources, the NEMSIS maintenance schedule is listed here. And we have it broken up by quarters. So since we're in November, then maintenance update will be completed on November 18th or 19th. Anything outside of those dates, any other complications or issues you may have outside of those dates, please open up a help desk ticket and we'll do our best to assist. And if you have any questions, please always feel free to submit a help desk ticket at the red button on the bottom right of our website if you have additional questions regarding NIMS maintenance schedule or any other NEMSIS related topics. Thank you, Monet. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you again, Bengie, for the update. Let me share the screen again here. All right, now we have our fabulous Dr. Clay Mann, who will provide an update on 2 topics. I have you listed to talk about the version and the critical patch update, as well as the state data submissions. Clay, I'll turn the time over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Monet. Appreciate that. Yeah, happy November, everybody, as we move into the holidays and things get a little bit busier, but hopefully with a positive twist. We're just grateful that you continue to join with us, and we'll be available during the holidays to help you with any issues that you have. John kind of touched on the first topic, just want to kind of emphasize that again. To be quite candid, we were very impressed with the uptake across the entire nation in regards to the CP6 and CP2 for 3.5.0 and 3.5.1. We usually stay with a failure rate of just under 1% for the entire nation, week to week to week, and John works very hard even to bring that even lower, right, as we work with states, mostly because there are new DEM files that need to be submitted. There's change in agencies or new agencies come on board. The failure rate over these last 2 weeks has been about 4%. And there's about 7 states that are the ones that are kind of experiencing like 99% of the failures due to CP6. And so John's going to be reaching out to those. You probably see that in your reports that we send out to you every Tuesday. If you want to kind of jump the gun and get busy on some fixes, we're happy to kind of help with that. We do a little bit of investigation, and we can tell that maybe some of the issues may be related to a product issue, so maybe a vendor can be helpful, and others, of course, may be due to agencies or others that have not moved to the new standard. But we're sitting really pretty, right? If we can kind of jump on this over the next couple of weeks before the holidays get really busy, that would be fantastic. We're on schedule. Again, it's incredible. We're on schedule to have about 61 million EMS records submitted to the National Repository this year. So again, can't thank everyone enough to continue to grow this project. We're thinking that it may be a little bit harder to retrieve some of these failed files due to CP6, and maybe a little bit more of an intensive process to resubmit. So if you're one of the states that you can see some issues happening, or you feel free, just reach out to John and we'll see if we can help you get that corrected as soon as possible, so that we can move into the holidays a little bit smoother. So thank you for that. Any questions?
Yes, Clay, we have a question in the chat from Chris from Emergency Networking. His question is there a spreadsheet of which which states are accepting both e-patient 13 and e-patient 25? So far, he currently has information for Illinois and Massachusetts.
Yeah, that's a great thought. I'm going to try to hurry and bring up the NEMSIS website. Perhaps let's see if I can do that real quickly and go to the location where you can look up the status of the plan for each state. So let me go back to sharing my screen here. So I'm just on the NEMSIS website here. If you go down to the latest news, right here, the first one to appear is the survey results for states' decisions and how they plan to move to CP6, how they plan to move. So this is in an Excel spreadsheet, and let this open. We had a lot of participation among states, so feel free to go in here and get a good feel for what each state has chosen to do in regards to moving to CP6. I hope that answers the question. Okay, great. The other thing I was just going to share real quickly, if there are no more questions, as folks know, we worked on redesigning our description of how we move from major versions to minor versions. We talked about this last week, and some folks on the call who viewed it actually came up with some couple of other revisions that were needed. So we haven't posted it yet. So we now plan to post it. It will be in the same location as the current document. And then we plan in November to work with you and with the DMC this month as well, talking about plans for moving to version 3.5.1 and just having a national model for how we see that happening to kind of help states work with stakeholders in regards to those who will be moving to 3.5.1. So we'll be working on that. We'll get this posted on the website this week. And so feel free to be able to share that with stakeholders. Its purpose, right, is just to, for your stakeholders within your state, to let them know that the NEMSIS standard will undergo a revision every 6 years. We call that among this elite group, right? Those are the major revisions, which just speaks to the technical nature of the revisions. And then, of course, we allow for minor revisions, more than one, as we try to show here. More than one minor revision could occur during that 6-year period. So if there's any other questions about this or any other information that we can provide to any of your stakeholders, let us know. So if there are no more questions, feel free to bring up a question in the Q&A. If not, I will turn it back over to Monet.
Okay, thank you so much, Clay. I'm just double checking because I certainly thought someone had a question on that particular topic. But if not, that is okay. I'm going to go back and share the agenda. And at this time, we are going to ask Mr. Randall Eimerman from NASEMSO. He's the NASEMSO NEMSIS liaison, if he could provide a NASEMSO update. And then also your second topic will be the violence against EMS update, Randall. Are you ready for me to turn the time over to you?
Yeah, Monet, and I'll need the screen so I can share.
Yes, thank you.
Monet, are you seeing my NASEMSO slide?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. So first for the NASEMSO update, really about the data managers here, some guidance documents that they've been working on. First one here is the AI use in EMS. This is a guidance document, really outlines the benefits, risk, and critical considerations the EMS leaders should evaluate to ensure responsible, secure, and ethical use of AI technologies within their operations. A second guidance document that's been completed is requesting EMS data across states. It's sort of the key considerations and guidance. But this is, EMS data is access is governed by state-specific policies, privacy standards, and legal requirements. This document really offers essential guidance to sort of help navigate those EMS data requests responsibly and effectively. And then lastly is our blood product administration documentation best practices. This is a version 2 from the a document that we had put out earlier in the year. As more work has been done on the blood transfusions, a second guidance document has come out. And really, this is just kind of to provide states with standardized methods for documenting blood product usage. This will facilitate a much more robust data collection and analysis. And really, by implementing the guidance, will ensure consistent and reliable documentation, as well as parallel reporting at the local, state, and national level. These three guidance documents, a lot of work went into them. DMC members did a lot of back and forth on making sure these were finalized. They will actually be presented to the NASEMSO board tomorrow for final approval and posting to the NASEMSO website. So once that is completed, we'll have an update and location where we can find those items. Next update here is extended data definitions. We are still
Randall?
completing. Yes, go ahead.
One quick question. I apologize, Randall, just in regards to the three documents. We had a question yesterday from a state. Does the second rendition of the blood transfusion documentation guidance, is that a supplement to version 1, or does it include and encompass everything that was in version 1, and it's a complete document?
It's a more complete document. So they've removed some of the more of the like kind of the NEMSIS standard data elements that were already existing that were answering for like the medications and procedures. Really outlined some of the new custom data elements in there, and then it kind of gave a breakdown of a great way to do some measures with them. It also has a few other details in there that will be an improvement of it, but it's really just sort of the finalization of all the work that we've completed.
Yeah, so Randall, it's not necessary that states keep both documents. Version 2 encompasses everything that was in version 1.
That is correct. When we wrote the first version, it was kind of this dynamic document that we knew would be updated. And so this is the updated version. You do not need to have both versions, just the second version is appropriate.
Thank you, Randall.
Yep. So yeah, back to extended data definitions. We're still completing some final edits from the version 3.5.0. We're trying to get that kind of finalized as quick as possible so that we can get it updated on the NEMSIS website. The DMC members, they continue to work sort of in the background on adding the new data elements for version 3.5.1. So the blood documentation, some other custom elements have really taken the front seat on that. But the DMC is still sort of working through survey responses to get that completed. Custom data elements. So two new custom data elements have been worked with the DMC. The first one is the date, time the medication was stopped. That was, kind of in the blood discussion, but it really fits in more as a medication in general. So that's why that stayed that way. And the second one that the data managers are still sort of finalizing here is the medication status at the time of transfer. They feel really confident with the data element name, and what we're looking at right now are the field values, just to make sure that they all make sense and that they're all applicable for the use case. So we'll have more on that here very soon, as the data managers will meet next week for their November meeting. Looks like we have a hand raised. Are we able to take that question now, Monet?
I believe so. Yeah. Would you like to go ahead and can we give Randall permission to come off mute? Can someone unmute him?
I think I'm unmuted.
Fantastic.
David.
Hello. I had a question about those specific data elements that are the list on the screen. So there's the one where it says complication or adverse reaction. Medication group has a list of complications. Was there any consideration for putting adverse reaction into the list of complications, and possibly also equipment malfunction? As that seems to be other places where it's listed as a complication, or it's a delay, I think, in other places. And
sorry, David, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That was the first thought.
Yeah, so these are the items that we're actually sort of trying to look into with the Data Managers Council. That's why this data element has sort of gone into like a secondary review, so that we can really look at these field values and make sure that they're not elsewhere. As far as having to add something into the complication, I do believe this has been a question that's been trying to be answered, the difference between the complication versus adverse reaction, if they're the same thing or completely different. So that is the reason that the data managers are still looking at these field values for approval.
Yes, I think with what's coming to my mind is complication would point back to the medication complications, and I'm not sure if there's other ones that you're considering that are not made explicit here, And so if you had an adverse reaction, it would say complication, and it'd point back, and you'd be able to look and say, oh, it was an adverse reaction.
It's like a recommendation to have two field values, one for discontinued to complication, the other one discontinued to adverse reaction. Is that what you're saying?
No, not in this list. I'd say, or my thought is, cross off adverse reaction from this list, put it into the medication complication list, and then when you say in status of time of transfer complication, you know to look at the complications to get the specifics.
Okay, perfect. That's a very good explanation, and I will bring that back to the data managers to review. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
There was one other one at
The equipment malfunction.
that one too, but I think we covered that one. But the other element that's not here, maybe it's been struck, the facility ID.
The FIN number, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
It has not been struck at this time. We did some additional research on that data element. It is still open to be created. I think we were just looking to see if there was any use cases for that. If we feel that it is, we can. We did some research with the ISCBA, I believe is the acronym, and they had some misleading information about creating it as a standalone data element. And since the FIN number is present in the first part of the DIN number, at this time, the data managers have not moved forward. But the data element itself, or the national custom element itself, has been created and could be available for use if we feel it needs to be.
Okay.
And when I say we, that's not the data managers. If the vendors find it valuable or other members, then we would be more than happy to create that.
All right. And the question was specifically it said that it seemed the definition, at least from the document I viewed recently, was that FIN and DIN were the same. And on our side, we verified that's not the case. I think you kind of alluded to that right now just as well.
All right, we will look into that as well then. So thank you for that information.
Yep. So like you said, FIN can be part of the DIN, but they're not the same.
Very good. Yeah, like I said, we will definitely look into that then. That's very helpful information. Anything else, David?
That is all for now.
Perfect. And then the last update I have for NASEMSO is just on our in-person regional meetings. We went to the Great Lakes, was September 16th. Western Plains did have their meeting as well in October. I did not attend that one. And then next week for the East region will be November 18th and 19th. We're doing a really good job of being able to bring this information back to those NASEMSO regions, not only in the in-person meetings, but also during the regular scheduled monthly meetings. Unfortunately, the South and the West both had to cancel, so we did not get an opportunity to get out there. But the same presentations we've given to Great Lakes and we will be giving to the East region, we'll be hoping to be giving out to the South and West. So that's just the update on those two. And Monet, if you're ready, I can just go into my next topic.
That would be perfect.
All right, so the next topic here we've been referring to it a lot is violence against EMS clinicians. We had some internal discussions of just trying to keep it very consistent with the current NEMSIS data dictionary. And not to say also that this doesn't just encompass the clinicians, but this could be any members of the EMS personnel. So first we have just a timeline of events. I know I've reviewed this a bunch, but just a quick reminder for everyone. We did meet with our team from Canada. They were very useful in understanding these elements and the process that they go through. We used Drexel University. They have a great Saver Emerge violent reporting system where we were able to look at some of their data elements. We met with some of our software vendors who create these different forms and deal with the violence against the EMS personnel. We had work groups with clinicians, the United States Fire Administration, the CDC, NAEMT, NEMSIS, NASEMSO, and once again included those software vendors. And then within the NASEMSO members, we did the Data Managers Council, the medical directors. They've really had a really good look at this data dictionary. And then we, of course, presented it and talked about it with the NEMSIS annual meeting. Some of the project objectives here to remind everyone was to explore some additional field values for E-other-06 to capture violence against the EMS personnel. And then also to develop a draft data dictionary for collecting the comprehensive violence against EMS personnel information. So we did all these items. We had the work group. We facilitated multiple meetings with them. We had surveys that went out to correct the data elements and the wording, make sure we were capturing everything. A big part of this as well was the E-other-06, the addition of the field values. Page, Wolfberg, and Worth were very involved to make sure that we didn't use any words that would kind of mix and match with state laws. So there you can see the additions of the violence field values. And then next, we're going to kind of get into the national custom elements. So we kind of breaking this down into two different new sections. One is under violence and the other one is under the supervisor field. This comes so under the violence. This is 15 custom elements, kind of looking at the EMS personnel details, their incident that they were involved in, and a little bit of a law enforcement report. Nothing that we're asking the EMS clinician to become law enforcement, but this is just sort of like a face sheet maybe that could be presented out with them and some additional materials that would help them. Help the law enforcement. And then under the supervisor section, we have 5 custom elements. And really it's about the EMS personnel having a follow-up and any kind of incident pre-arrival alerts where if a supervisor needs to communicate with the dispatcher, and it just helps them have a record to know that they've done that. Part of this data dictionary as well is our existing NEMSIS data elements. So we did a lot of work to kind of go through the system, the existing standard, and see what data elements would be useful for a violence report. So we really looked at like our crew member details, the type of response that they're on, the scene information, the location, the address, the time series. So, the E times, the patient demographics, and the patient condition. These are fields that are already being collected on the EPCR, so it doesn't really take additional burden on the clinician because they would be answering these questions anyways. So just want to highlight the E-violence section. We have some EMS personnel was physically harmed, EMS personnel emotional or mental health. In red here, I've highlighted who committed the violent act. When we look at this data element specifically, there are field values around patient, family member, the friend of the patient, just a bystander, other emergency responder, maybe the healthcare facility, and there's an other checkbox. The reason I highlighted this one was if it was the patient who had committed the violent act against you, you would most likely have all of those patient demographics that could kind of move into this report. We're going to try to highlight here that if it's not the patient who's committed the violent act, we are not asking the EMS clinicians to go out, obtain information on who did this, but just a quick thing to say this was not the patient, so that would kind of help law enforcement with their investigation if needed. We also have phases of the call when the violence occurred, whether it was on the scene, during transport, maybe at the hospital, the method of the violence that they experienced. EMS personnel that had any physical injuries and how severe were those injuries, circumstances that contributed to the violent incident, such as drugs or alcohol with the patient's bystanders. Violent act, was it intentional or unintentional? Meaning, did the patient do this on purpose or was it maybe due to their state? And then there's a violence narrative portion. We're trying to make sure that's separate from the normal narrative and just trying to highlight that that's for the violence piece itself. Few more data elements that are going to be covered under the E-violence would be the number of assailants, whether or not law enforcement was notified of the event, law enforcement witnessed it, maybe they were on scene standing there versus just on scene and didn't actually witness it, whether this person was detained by law enforcement, and then any potential risks for the scene response where you're getting an alert from dispatch prior to arrival. And these really are EMS personnel data elements to be completed. So the next section here is the e-supervisor section. These are kind of the supervisor data elements to fill out. So this would be kind of part of the follow-up that the EMS clinician could have from the incident. So there's a 30-day, 60-day, and a 90-day follow-up. And then the supervisor would also be able to kind of work with dispatch on a pre-arrival violence risk alert and creating of that pre-arrival violence risk alert to their dispatch center. Next steps for this is we are currently working to create the national custom elements, kind of getting this information over so they can be created. NASEMSO Data Managers Council will probably be working on a guidance document to sort of help with this flow and making sure that the data is collected, making sure that it's not being printed out maybe with the patient record and just the overall flow of how that should work. And then look for some follow-up discussion on data element use. So instead of just sort of sending these national custom elements out for everyone to just sort of grab and use, we'll be looking to put like a little bit of a working group together and hear some feedback on those custom data elements and see how they can be improved. And looks like that's the end of the violence presentation. Looks like we have 2 questions. I'll just go with David first since that hand is on top.
All right. I just had a quick question if there is any thought to a violence when they're not on a call. So are these separate data sets or is this part of the PCR?
The method that we have right now would be part of the ePCR. We are continuing to talk about violent incidents that would happen when you're not on the call. But as of right now, this would be for during the ePCR use.
Yeah.
Anything else? Samantha, go ahead.
All right, I think I'm unmuted. My question was very similar to David's. It feels like, I mean, this is incredibly important information to capture. I'm very excited to see this. I have deep concerns about it being part of, a PCR record, thinking about having to put this information in patient care record that then makes that patient care record part of a legal record that especially the follow-up steps, for instance, anything around the provider's mental health associated with it. It also feels like it could potentially cause problems with finalizing that record and getting that record over to, for instance, like a billing piece or something. Like there's so many pieces here that feel like it do not belong in the patient care record.
Yeah,
Thinking
Sam,
about all the different places that this patient care record goes.
Yeah, Sam, this is Clay. Maybe a little bit of clarification. When Randall was answering David's question, it was related to the idea that the actual violent act happened during the call, right? Under which time the ePCR would be important. But for example, the elements that are associated with the quote e-supervisor section that we're trying to decide, those would not be included in the patient care report. We're trying to expand our custom element approach here by not only including elements that should be included in the ePCR. These are custom elements that we're testing and will probably become national. But we're also going to be having these subset of elements like the e-supervisor section that wouldn't be within the ePCR itself, but perhaps vendors would build a supplemental form or some other form that could be associated with the collection of the data, but it would not be part of the ePCR. Is that clarified a little bit, Sam?
For the e-supervisor, it does. So it sounds like we need to have like separate discussions about what that would look like to send into a national database. But we'll continue to have discussions on the e-personnel expansion there.
Great, Sam. Yeah, that's true. Hey, Randall, one other thing I just want to bring up just real quick. I want to make sure that you're checking the Q&A. Brian Sullivan from Boston MedFlight had a great suggestion for your custom element discussion. So be sure and capture that. Thanks,
Sure
Randall.
will. Thank you, Clay. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much, Monet. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Randall. That was excellent information, and we really appreciate all the work that you do to combine the efforts of NASEMSO and NEMSIS So thank you again. The next topic belongs to me, and it's going to be a quick overview of the monthly report. So I wanted to just mention briefly that the NEMSIS TAC is in a position where we always want to be transparent with the activities that we're performing at the TAC. And so we produce this monthly report to give you a high-level overview of various activities. This report right now, I'm actually going to share in the chat after, but I want you to know that this report here came out just this week, probably on Monday. And so you may not have seen it, but it is available on the website. Currently, we're at 52 million records for just the 2025 calendar year, which is amazing. We also have links to our previous V3 implementation calls in case you missed one of those calls or more or both calls. I want to mention also that you'll see here, we are actually going to cancel our meeting on the 26th because it's very close to the Thanksgiving holiday. We have a quick summary here of the recent, of the previous public training that was provided by Randall, and the topic was custom values and custom elements. And so if you missed that training, you could also click this link here and find that information. We also have information about the critical patch in case you did not see that email that went out, and there's the links to the CP6 and CP2 data dictionaries. And then also I wanted to mention that Chris Hoffman put a lot of work into providing a state data manager's annual report template. And so there's a brief summary about what you can do with that template here. And there's a link to the template as well as to the intro video. And so then the remaining report includes information about the compliance status, the vendors who are going through compliance or completed compliance and what that looks like, the various screenshots on the website. And then I just wanted to mention briefly here about the V3 data use agreements. We are more than 80% complete with the data use agreements. However, there are maybe a few states, just a handful of states, that we're still trying to get these completed with. And so if you could help us out, this is just a gentle reminder. Please continue to work on those and help us get those completed. And then as promised, I said I would share it with you. So I'm going to go ahead and send that link to you. And then the next topic would actually be our good friend from NHTSA, Mr. Jeremy Kinsman. And Jeremy, you have 3 topics. The first topic is you're going to provide an update from NHTSA's Office of EMS. The second topic will be a pre-hospital blood update. And then the final topic would be a request to evaluate EMD. So Jeremy, if you're ready, I'll turn the time over to you.
Yes, thanks very much, Monet. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Let me know if I start breaking up. I have had some issues with my internet connectivity this week. So if that happens, I'll just and join my phone. All right, just a couple updates from our office. I think I mentioned on the last call, or maybe the call before that, NHTSA, we're paid out of a separate funding source. So even though there's a good portion of the federal government that has had a lapse in federal funding has shut down, at NHTSA, we are here, we're working. So if there's anything you need, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. It does sound like there's going to be a bill that's going to go to the House today. And so it's possible that this week there will, the entire federal government will be back to work. So let's see. NEMSAC, I think I may have provided an update last week about NEMSAC. The deadline to submit to be part of NEMSAC ended, I think about a month ago, maybe now. And we are in the process of reviewing applications for NEMSAC. We received more applications. I heard from Clary in our office who administers both NEMSAC and FICMs that we had more applicants than we'd ever had before. So we have a lot of applications to review, and then we'll be submitting those up to NHTSA and DOT leadership for approval. I've mentioned a few times that we have an interagency agreement with the Uniformed Services University. They, in the past, had the National Center for Disaster Medicine and Public Health. They have joined forces with several other kind of centers and programs at the Uniformed Services University, and so they have formed a new center called the National Institute for Defense Health Cooperation, or NEDIC. So RIAA is now with NEDIC at the Uniformed Services University. That is the group that we are working with on establishing 25 pre-hospital blood demonstration programs across the country to measure the impact of pre-hospital blood on motor vehicle crash patients. They have a contract with a group at Johns Hopkins University called the Applied Physics Laboratory, or APL. We and the team at the NEMSIS TAC are going to be working really closely with them and our 25 demonstration programs. So that group, Johns Hopkins APL, is going to be tasked with collecting EMS, police crash, and hospital outcomes data from our 25 demonstration sites. So I think as we have move along the process, our expectation is that they'll probably be working a little bit with those demonstration sites and in tune, probably the vendors and the state, potentially the state offices of EMS for those 25 sites. And I think as we've got more information, we'll share that with all of you. I think for this group, especially, you know, as we continue that work and other work with NEDIC at the Uniformed Services University, you know, our NEMSIS data that we collect at the University of Utah at the national level is going to be extremely important. I think particularly for that project, because it's going to allow us to identify these places across the country where we feel like motor vehicle crash patients could particularly benefit from pre-hospital blood. We're also going to continue to be using our NEMSIS data at the national level to identify where is there gaps in EMS and where does the federal government really need to prioritize EMS resources and support. So, you know, please continue to work with the team at the NEMSIS TAC on identifying any places where we have a slowdown in submission of records to the National EMS database. So, because that will certainly help us and NEDIC to identify again where we need to implement some resources. For my pre-hospital blood update, I've got several updates there. You know, we've been working really closely with the NEMSIS TAC on identifying, developing, and validating a definition for patients who could benefit from pre-hospital blood. We took the clinical practice guidelines that the Pre-Hospital Blood Transfusion Coalition put out, and we translated that into a NEMSIS data definition. We've gone through several rounds of validation, and I think probably in a future call we'll have the NEMSIS TAC team can provide a more detailed update kind of and background on that work. We've been doing some kind of concordance testing, looking at, you know, where do we know of programs that are really active across the country where we do not have any capture of blood transfusion data at the national level. And we have reached out to a few places. One large program, we realized they were using a kind of an oversight scope. So that was really interesting. So we realized, okay, well, that's really an issue. NEMSIS TAC and so we make sure that we're capturing cases that are occurring in that area. Using supplemental form or not using the NEMSIS standard to do that documentation. And so we work with those places and those vendors to see if there's not some kind of solution we can come up with those places. So I think our expectation for you all is our office and the TAC, we're going to kind of continue to be reaching out to EMS agencies, states, and vendors to see what we can do to kind of make sure we're capturing really accurate blood transfusion data at the national level. We're working on a number of our office and the TAC are working on a number of different kind of like dashboards, reports, and maybe some planned manuscripts, specifically looking at uh, patients who could benefit from pre-hospital blood and where pre-hospital blood transfusions are occurring. So I think as those things get developed and are produced and we're ready to release them publicly, we'll make sure that you all are aware about those things. Um, and then just real quickly, I'll just end this part on my pre-hospital blood update on just continuing to communicate to you all about NHTSA funding opportunities. So we've had the DOT Safe Streets and Roads for All program for several years now. Our expectation is that by the end of March of 2026, there is likely to be an announcement about an additional funding opportunity for SS4A. In the first year, we had a few successful applications related to post-crash care. And then this past year for FY25, we had several more successful applications that are currently under final review. And those applications had some parts that were specific to post-crash care. We had quite a few more that were related to pre-hospital blood. And so if you are interested in SS4A, I would go to the website, see if, the localities where your EMS agency operates, or, if you're a state office of EMS, take a look at, where there's existing kind of SS4A programs that have been funded, and to uh, uh, take a look at the action plans, look at the list of awardees, and see if maybe there's an opportunity for you to join a group that has already been funded and is putting together a comprehensive safety action plan. So, and then for our state partners out there, we would continue to continue to encourage you to connect regularly with your state highway safety office. And see if there's any opportunities for Section 405 grant programming related to data, and just kind of continue to have a conversation with them about how EMS data is really timely and can really help us do a good job of tracking kind of injury trends related to motor vehicle crashes and not just fatalities. So let me transition next to this request that we had for kind of an evaluation of emergency medical dispatch data in NEMSIS. Folks are probably aware that our Office of EMS at NHTSA also houses the National 911 program. Oh, Brian Tegmeyer, who gave a presentation at the NEMSIS annual meeting. If you all were there, if you watched the recording, you may know Brian. He's our National 911 program coordinator. And Joni Harvey, who's also in our office, is his deputy. So they have been working really hard on trying to help us kind of scope and understand what's going on across the country in terms of 911 centers and PSAPs and where they have good interoperability with EMS data. And one of the things that we pointed out to them, I think it's eDispatch 02, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's an emergency medical dispatch data element. And when we looked nationally, about 17% of our 911 calls that we collected at the national level indicated that there was some form of emergency medical dispatch that had been performed. And so they've had a lot of questions to us about, well, how is that documented? Is that documented by the EMS clinician after they arrive on scene and they generate their report? Is this potentially documented by the dispatcher? And then that information is going through the CAD and is pre-populating the EPCR record. I mean, I think their interest is really about how accurate is that data? Is that a good data point that they and we could use in our office to kind of help identify, like, well, where is EMD being successful? Like, where is it happening? Is it a good data element for us to potentially track? Because I think, as folks are probably aware, we do not have there's no national 911 data standard, and kind of scoping and characterizing, understanding 911 capabilities in a detailed way across the country is a challenge. So is there potential value in that eDispatch 02 data element? So one of the things Brian asked Clay and I to do was to reach out to you all and if there are any states or local EMS agencies that would be interested in having a conversation with Brian and his contractor, who's called Mission Critical Partners, that some of you may be familiar with, to just have a conversation about, hey, how is eDispatch 02 documented? Again, is it your experience that this is something that's documented by the EMS clinician because they have awareness that their 911 PSAP has EMD, or during the response, they're looking at the CAD and they're seeing notes related to EMD, and so they know the EMD was performed and they're documenting? Or again, is this something that's being documented via the dispatcher and via some type of integration is coming into the EPCR? So if you would be open and interested in having a conversation again with Brian and Mission Critical Partners and Joni, please let us know. You can just let us know in the chat, or you can email the team at the TAC and we can share that information with Brian. So I'll stop there and see if folks have any questions that I would be happy to answer. Thanks. Looks like Jonathan, you've got a question or comment.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I appreciate it. I'll be kind of brief, and I'll send a separate note about the request that you just made. So appreciate that. But I was wondering, you made a statement almost in passing like a minute ago about the lack of a national 911 standard. That's a very intriguing statement to me. I don't know how many, whether I'm sure some folks in your office like Brian and Joni, maybe others on this call are watching. As much change as there is in the EPCR marketplace right now, with a lot of investment and M&A activity, consolidation, all sorts of stuff, what's going on in the dispatch market is bonkers. I mean, there is so much happening in terms of companies getting swallowed up and reconstructed, and just a lot of change happening really is spurred around next gen 911. And I've been watching that, realizing there's still so much talk about funding questions around next gen 911, whether it's a thing, whether it's a pipe dream, kind of whether it's deployed at scale or kind of more like pilot plus. I don't know if now is the right time to talk about that, but I'm wondering if you at some point, either now if you want, or at a future meeting, could bring some intelligence to this group about that. Because it has been, again, a lot of that consolidation is occurring in a bit of a bubble, but it touches our world, right? For example, there was an announcement made just this week that Axon, the company that makes taser and body cams, has acquired 2 different dispatch-related companies. Their focus clearly is on public safety and policing. But one of those companies had a very publicly announced partnership or some kind of collaboration with GMR. So it's not irrelevant to our world at all. And but again, it's sort of happening over there. And so to the degree that you just made that statement about the lack of a national framework for that, that's actually much more interesting to me when I think, well, then kind of what are they buying? If you've got this sort of patchwork of data definitions and patchwork of systems, that could be really interesting to dig into, or at least for us to understand where it does cross over between 911, fire, EMS, public safety, and of course we have some places that have cross-trained units. All right, we have an agency that's both. Anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jonathan. What I'll do is I'll talk to Clay, I'll talk to Brian and Joni, and we can have a discussion about what would be kind of the best way for us to kind of share that information with you all. It could maybe be on one of these calls, it could be maybe on one of the NEMSIS education hours. Of course, we're happy to just chat with Jonathan. I'm sure Brian and Joni would be happy to chat with you one-on-one anytime. But yeah, I think we've got some different venues where we could provide some up-to-date information on what's going on with our national 911 program, and kind of continue to kind of have the conversation that we're having here. Did you have something else, Jonathan?
There we go. Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to clarify that as you sort of thought, this really is just an understanding question. So I'm not asking for you guys to weigh judgment at all on whether what's happening is good, bad, ugly, fantastic. I think there's a bit of a Venn diagram effect happening where some of that work affects this ecosystem. And so I just think it would be great for us to know what the status quo is, again, especially when you start looking at next gen and cast out 3 to 5 years. As you mentioned, EMD, that's going to affect us. So there's some talk about telemedicine and technologies and how those come in. I think it would just be great to understand the different threads from a market intelligence technology, now versus forecasting perspective to the degree you can. Just to be clear, I'm not asking you to weigh in on the business activities of that sector. I can imagine that might be an offline conversation folks would weigh in on, but we could all use a sense of what's really happening. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? If not, I'll hand it back to Monet.
I don't see any additional questions in the chat or QA, so we'll go ahead and continue. If you have questions, you can certainly submit them to us through the help desk ticket, and we will definitely forward that information to Jeremy and Brian Tegmeyer and others at NHTSA. So don't hesitate sending your questions. We love the questions. All right, as we continue with the agenda, I want to let you know that we do have a public training in December on the 2nd. This training actually will be conducted by Mr. Josh Legler, and the topic will be schematron. So if you're familiar with schematron and want to jump in on that training, or if you're unfamiliar and want to learn more, certainly that is a way that you can get some additional information. And we'll send out information about that in a few weeks. I also want to let you know that our next public V3 implementation call will be December the 10th. And this will be the only V3 call in December, as we will be taking off for the Christmas holiday. At this time, we have open forum, and I would like to ask if there are any questions that anyone wants to bring up. Thank you, Jonathan Fife and David Saylor and Samantha Helge for all your questions so far. But if there are others, we would love to entertain them at this time. Going once. All right. At this time, since there are no questions or comments for the open forum, we will go ahead and turn some time over to Amanda to discuss the conduct for the breakout rooms for the vendors. Amanda, are you available to give us a short description of what you want us to do in the breakout sessions?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to remind everyone to join their assigned rooms and to keep it respectful. I hope that you all have a great day, and we will see you at the next meeting. You can go ahead and join those breakout rooms now.
And as you're joining those meeting rooms, we want to say thank you again for your time. We know that your time is valuable, and we appreciate all that you do to keep us running here at the TAC and submitting records and all the things that you're doing. There's so much going on right now. So thank you again for your time. We appreciate you, and have a great rest of your day.